All right. So next is Nick Ellingson, and there you go. Hello, Nick. How you doing?
How's it going? Happy Thursday.
And it is still daylight on our coast. Yes.
Dwindling, but yes.
All right. So Nick, would you mind giving a little introduction about who you are for the members of our audience who've never heard of you before?
Yeah. So, hey, everyone, I'm Nick. I work at the Washington Technology Industry Association. So we are the largest tech association in the US. And so while we are, Washington focused, we're doing a lot of regional work, national work, international work. I have two roles. So I run our startup programs and then also do economic development work around blockchain and quantum computing. You'll get to hear from me in a little bit around some of the work we're doing in blockchain. But for startups, so we run a lot of different accelerators. Our main accelerator program, which we're recruiting for cohort 8 right now, we put about 60 companies through each year, 50 to 60 companies. We've had about 180 companies go through it, and they've raised a little over $220 million combined over the last 4 or 5 years or so. And yeah, I've had the pleasure with working with Nate through one of those. So yeah, happy to be here and chat about startups. And yeah, you get to hear from me twice tonight. So excited for it.
Not bad. So you look at this not from the point of view of an investor or even from a startup, but from an accelerator or connector, right?
Indeed. I can put an investor hat on because I know enough investors and have done enough work with startups, but definitely come from it from a sort of helping startups perspective.
Right. So like Lorenzo, which we just saw, who sees tons of deals all throughout the year, you see lots of work with the startup community, but you are based here in the Northwest, right?
Indeed. I live in SeaTac. Planes fly up right over there all day.
Not bad. So with that, so I'm going to say, so what are some of the trends that you may have been seeing over the past 2 or 3 years in general? I know you are a generalist. You're not focused on FinTech, but you are focused on our region, right?
Yeah. So seeing a lot of different trends. I'd say some interesting ones that we've seen in our cohort are a lot of elder care stuff that I think has kind of come up through the pandemic. But I've also seen a lot of FinTech, especially around, blockchain, cryptocurrency, stable coins, all that kind of stuff. And so we have like 4 or 5 companies in our current accelerator that would classify themselves as FinTech companies, maybe even more that would classify themselves, but I classify like 4 or 5 of them as that probably. And seeing a lot of different use cases, but everything from increasing financial literacy to remittance to helping indigenous populations access some of these markets. And then broadly, we're doing a lot of work policy-wise and other around digital assets. And so we've been encouraged in work we've been doing with the Department of Financial Institutions and them listening to some of the challenges startups have had in dealing with some of the regulations and offering to sort of lend a helping hand. But yeah, I would say, those are a couple trends. I think FinTech's definitely one of the bigger ones that we've seen, but yeah, an interesting one that's popped up is elder care over the last couple of years. And we're also seeing a lot more, I'd say I'm seeing a lot more like digital health, healthcare, taking control of your own health journey, I guess, or healthcare journey, for lack of a better term.
Oh, not bad. Do you have, now this is a bit of an open question here. Do you see some opportunities here in the Pacific Northwest that are a little easier or more advantageous than elsewhere in the country? And that's a little bit of a bias thing because you don't know what life is like elsewhere in the country, right?
Decent idea. You'll hear more about this from me in a half an hour, but we work with about 25 or 30 different state blockchain associations on policy work, in addition to the Blockchain Association federally. So I have a little bit of an understanding. I would say, the reason to do FinTech in the region is similar to why this region is strong in general, which is we have the best technical talent in the world. If you look at Startup Genome and things like that, we're ranked near the top or #1 in Talent Index. We have this is outdated now, it's more now, but 150,000, 180,000 plus software developers working in the state. It is the #1 job in the state, the only state where that's the case. And tech is by far, tech and tech services is by far the biggest export in the state. So technology is what we do. And because of the background that we have in AI, machine learning, Cloud was built here. A lot of these things that sort of help support and provide some infrastructure for FinTech, we're really strong in. And then, like I said, there's interest from the government, which I'll get to later on, in actually supporting FinTech and supporting some new innovations. And obviously it's a really highly regulated space. And so there's some states that'll do like regulatory sandboxes, things like that. That's not something Washington has done, but definitely listening to the needs of the community and trying to create regulations and legislation that doesn't hamper any innovation. So I'd say the government here has been very, at least in our experience over the last couple of years, has been really, really willing to listen and willing to engage in what we're doing. So as an example, which I'll talk a little bit more about later on, but there was blockchain working group legislation passed in the state in the last legislative session that's basically spinning up here over the next couple months, where we're bringing a bunch of stakeholders together to talk about sort of what does that future look like in the region, and what regulation, legislation, other things do we need to do to support that in the state.
Wow.
So we're not going to be the Wild West like Wyoming is, and some of that just comes down to like our state constitution, things like that. But I would say we have the tech talent here. We have a good entrepreneurial ecosystem broadly, a lot of folks who want to support this space, and folks like Madrona Group and Madrona Venture Labs and others, Techstars, folks like that are focusing more and more on supporting FinTech companies.